We got midweek action again in MLS, and this time, once again, we have 5 games that's going to be happening in the midweek. Although, for the first time this season, in terms of the midweek action, all the games will not be taking place on the same day and taking place on Wednesday. There's going to be 4 that's going to be taking place on Wednesday, and the LAFC versus FC Dallas game is going to be taking place on Thursday. So, what I'm going to probably have to do is that I'm going to have to do the review on Thursday, and also I'm going to do the preview for the MLS Matchweek number 12 weekend games on the same day. So, thank you MLS for making me have to work doubly hard on Thursday because of the fact that there is a game on Thursday. But that being said, let's actually get into some of these games, and some of these games are actually very interesting. And the first one is one of those where TFC take on DC United. TFC, of course, are 5-1-4, while DC United is currently 7-2-3. And TFC, of course, lost 2-1 to Philly at home in the last game, while DC United, of course, won 1-0 to SKC at home. In the last 5 games, TFC lost 2-1 to Philly, lost 2-0 to Atlanta, won 2-0 against Orlando on the road, lost 2-1 against Portland at home, and won 4-3 against Minnesota. So in some way, they've been a little bit inconsistent in terms of them winning and losing in the last 5 games. Well, for DC United, they won 1-0 against SKC. They won 3-1 against Columbus. They did lose 1-0 on the road against DC. Won 1-0 on the road against Columbus, and lost 2-0 to NYCFC at home. And, certainly this is a very interesting matchup because both of these teams are very good. Although, one thing that I wonder about this game is that, most likely Josie Altidore is going to be back with TFC in this game. He made a substitute appearance in the last game, and although it didn't really have like a big impact to TFC in this game, it's clear that they really want Josie Altidore to be back in the starting 11, and I'm assuming he most likely will be back in the starting 11 to face against DC. And it will be also interesting to see if DC can continue this good road record that they've been have so far this season. I mean, the last game against SKC, it wasn't a very convincing 1-0 win against SKC, and I know you would think that playing against SKC is a tough task, but knowing Sporting KC has been just decimated with injury, I thought DC would have done a little bit better. And in terms of the goal scoring wise, I mean, besides this DC versus Columbus game where they scored 3 goals, they haven't really been scoring a whole ton of goals, and they're going to be facing against a team that definitely is going to score a lot of goals, but is also a team that gives up a lot of goals. So we'll see if DC can explore that TFC defense that is really what's holding back TFC to become one of the best team in the league right now. They certainly have the weapon going forward with Altidore and Pozuelo, but that back line is just very shaky so far this season. But that being said, moving on into the next game, and that is Houston. They play against the Timbers, so Houston are back at home again. It seemed like throughout this first half of the season, they've been mostly at home. And, while they have been mostly at home in the first half of the season, that means that in the second half of the season, they're going to have a lot of road game. And it will really tells you whether or not if this Dynamo team can make well, I think they'll make the playoffs, but where exactly they're going to finish in terms of the playoff spot. But they are playing against the Portland Timbers. Portland, of course, 3-1-6, while Houston is 6-1-2. Houston did lose their second game of the season against Seattle, although, it was a very spirited fight against Seattle, and in a game that maybe they could have got a point out of it. They had chances in that game to get a goal and get an equalizer to at least walk away with a point at CenturyLink Field, but still, no shame of them losing to one of the best team in the league and not getting anything out of a place that is incredibly hard for road team to get something out of. Well, Portland, of course, they had their 3-game road winning streak snapped by Vancouver, although they probably should have won that one, consider how many chances that they had against Vancouver and how they was just not clinical whatsoever, and their shooting boots was just not there against Vancouver. So, in terms of the last 5 games for Houston, they of course lost to Seattle 1-0. They did win 2-1 against FC Dallas, win against Columbus 2-0. They did lose 2-1 against the Galaxy, and then they won 2-1 against the Quakes at home. While for Portland, they lost 1-0 to Vancouver, but they won 2-1 against RSL, won 2-1 against TFC, won 3-1 against Columbus, and they lost 2-1 against FC Dallas. And I believe this is the next game for Portland. I believe that is probably the last game that they will be playing on the road, because this would be... Or no, this would be the 10th game. So they still technically have 3 more road games left before they open up Providence Park for the first time this season, in the newly renovated Providence Park this season. So yeah, they're getting very close in terms of them finishing this grueling 12-game road trip to start the season. And, you know, this is definitely going to be a tough one for the Timber, consider the fact that Houston is very good this season at home, and they have been pretty good at home for the past couple of years. But you never know. You know, Portland, so far, I think for the Timbers, I'm pretty sure that they're pretty satisfied of the spot that they're in. And I know the record doesn't say that, but as I mentioned before, of this Timbers team, if they can get like a couple of wins on this 12-game road trip, even like just 3 or 4 wins of this road trip, then they are definitely in a good spot in the second half of the season to just make a crazy resurgence and move themselves up in the playoff position. And they're right around that. I believe they're currently 8th place or 9th place. So they're right around that red line. And I said in the beginning of the season, as long as if they can hover right around that red line after this 12-game road trip, then they, of course, will be fine. But in this game, they're going to have to deal with Houston, who is a very good team, especially on the break. Probably one of the best team in terms of counter-attacking in this league. So, that being said, let's move on into the next one, which is Vancouver. They, of course, are playing against Atlanta United. Vancouver, of course, are 3-3-5, while Atlanta is 5-2-3. They beat Portland 1-0 at home, as I mentioned. And Atlanta, one of the hottest team right now, winning 5 of 6 games and really just showing that, yeah, the old Atlanta United is back this season. In the last 5 games, Vancouver, of course, won 1-0 against Portland. They won 3-2 against Colorado on the road. They lost 1-0 on the road against Orlando City. Won 1-0 against LAFC and drew 1-1 against the Chicago Fire. Well, for Atlanta, they won 1-0 against Orlando City. Won 2-0 against TFC. Won 3-0 against SKC. Won 1-0 against Colorado. And lost 2-1 against FC Dallas. And this is a kind of an interesting matchup, too, because, you know, I think both of these teams are coming into this game in very good form. And as I mentioned in the review with Atlanta, I'm assuming Frank de Boer is going to have to change his team. I mean, when you saw that Orlando City versus Atlanta game, and especially in the last 10 minutes, the players for Atlanta United was just absolutely gassed. And this is the 4th game for Atlanta in 10 days, and, you know, knowing that now they have that mini game and that this game is in the West Coast, which means they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country. I'm assuming Frank de Boer is going to have to do some rotation with this team. And I know it's not ideal to do rotation when the team that you've been putting week in and week out has been getting the result, but it's just getting to a point where when you look at the end of that Orlando City versus Atlanta game and how if a team can actually finish those chances against Atlanta, then they could have easily snatched a point or even get all 3 points in this game. So there is a warning bell that Atlanta, they need to think about switching things up. And even if they do take a loss in this game, at least they have looked really good in these last couple of games and really convinced me that, yeah, if they can continue this kind of form, they would be sneaking right up to the Eastern Conference and trying to take that Eastern Conference crown again, like they have been in last season. But that being said, moving on into the next game, is the Sounders. They take on Orlando City in this game. The Sounders are 6-4-1, and Orlando City is 3-3-5. Seattle, of course, won 1-0 against Houston at home, while Orlando lost to Atlanta away. As I mentioned, they lost to Atlanta 1-0 in that game. In the last 5 games, Seattle, of course, won 1-0 against Houston. They drew 1-1 against Minnesota, drew 1-1 against LAFC, drew 2-2 against the Quakes, and they lost 4-1 against the Sounders. So the Sounders, in the last 5 games, have definitely not been as dominant as they have in the beginning of the season. And as for Orlando City, they lost 1-0 to Atlanta, lost 2-0 against TFC, drew 1-1 against NYCFC, won 1-0 against Vancouver, and they lost 2-1 against Orlando City. So in some way, both of these teams are coming into this game not in a really good form. But I think the big storyline coming into this game is that this is a classic trap game for Seattle, because the next game Seattle is going to be playing is going to be on the road, and it's going to be facing against the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, known as the Philadelphia Union. And, I'm pretty sure they have that game in their back of the mind, and knowing that they're going to have a really tough task against Philly over the weekend. But they need to also make sure that they have to take care of Orlando City first. And, Orlando City, if they just can finish their chances, I mean, they're kind of been in a bit of a goal drought right now, and that they're one of those teams that just cannot score goals. But unlike many of these teams that just cannot score goals, the biggest problem for Orlando City right now is that they just can't finish those chances. Out of all the teams that have been struggling in terms of scoring goal, they're the only team that I think that if they just could have put those chances away, and that they're the only team that are creating chances, but if they just put it away, then they shouldn't be in this goal drought. So for Orlando City, if they can just be a little bit more clinical in these last couple of games, or in this game, then maybe they have a shot against Seattle. Like I said, Seattle, they need to worry about the fact that they have to take care of business in this game, and that, in the last time when they face a trap game, which was a couple of weeks ago against the Quakes, they kind of fell into the trap when they were down 2-0, and then only they realize that, oh, yeah, we got to win this game. Like, we're 2-0 down. Hopefully, it won't be the same case in this game, too. But just to let you know that you still have to play this game before Philly, and that you need to focus on this one and getting all 3 points in this game before you think about that very tough game and that marquee matchup between them and the Union on the weekend. But moving on and into the final game of this week is LAFC. They take on against FC Dallas, and a couple of weeks ago, this game would have been one of those marquee kind of matchup, and would have been a game that I would say right up there with TFC versus DC United as a game that you definitely want to tune in. But lately, Dallas, they have struggled badly, and that the struggle that they have in these last couple of games is that they just cannot score right now, and the attack is not clicking whatsoever. Their record now is 5-2-4 compared to LAFC, which has the best record in the league with 8 wins, 3 draws, and 1 losses. LAFC, of course, won 3-0 against Columbus away. It was a very convincing 3-0 win against the Crew in the last game, while Dallas, of course, they lost 3-1 against the Red Bulls at home. In the last 5 games, LAFC, of course, as I mentioned, they won 3-0 against Columbus, drew 0-0 against Chicago, drew 1-1 against LAFC. They won 4-1 against Seattle and lost to Vancouver 1-0. And this is where really they would kind of endure a little bit of a blip. But like I said, in the last game against Columbus, yeah, they looked like the LAFC team from earlier this season, which was just a team that pretty much just run over everybody. Well, for Dallas, they of course lost 3-1 against the Red Bulls, lost 2-1 against FC, or 2-1 against Houston. They lost 0-0 or drew 0-0 to the Quakes, won 2-1 against Atlanta, and won 2-1 against Portland. But like I said, these last 3 games, they have really struggled, and as I mentioned before, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Paxton Palmico is not in this team, and I'm not quite sure he's going to be in this team also. And you also wonder, when Paxton Palmico does go with the U20 team for the U.S. men's national team in these upcoming weeks, yeah, they're going to miss him for a longer period than the injury that he is suffering right now. And for Dallas, we know right now, without Palmico, this team just cannot function in terms of the attack, and they need to try to figure that stuff out. But in this game against LAFC, yeah, I have a feeling LAFC is going to win this one, because knowing how they just completely cruised their way with a 3-0 victory against Columbus in the last game, and looking like a team that is ready to look like what they were in the beginning of the season. Yeah, it would be kind of a so MLS kind of moment if FC Dallas were to get anything out of this, because I think LAFC is going to be heavy favorites coming into this one. But that being said, that is pretty much it for all 5 games that I preview. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 5 games. Make sure you guys leave your prediction in the comments below, and also tell me which game that you think is a must watch in this midweek action. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.